Peace and blessings, royal family. I was just thinking about it. One thing that we do is probably trying to ascend and don't realize what we ingest into the body have a lot to do with it. And I was thinking about toothpaste. It's been like 3 years since I used toothpaste. And it's because of the research just on fluoride alone. Fluoride is really a fume. It's like when you put it on your toothbrush, that's enough right there. Just the fume alone is what's going to go to your brain and fry your brain and change your brain waves and calcify your pineal, if not already just poison it. So you got to realize, if you're trying to ascend and you ain't working, it ain't getting you to the metaphysical, spiritual realms, maybe you need to stop using toothpaste. I wouldn't say maybe, I know for a fact you can't use toothpaste. I was researching around the same time stuff that we get addicted to, what gets us addicted to things. And the number one cause of our addiction is ourselves. We get addicted to ourselves. So what wind up happening is a lot of us, we wind up getting addicted to drugs like crack or whatever. And it's like, from my research, it was the bicarbonate that was inside the liquor, the crack or whatever that we was addicted to. And it's the same thing why they go for baby fetuses, put human parts in vaccination. All of them is a form of not just a possession, but it gets us addicted to things. That's why you hear some chips, burgers, fries, anything you're addicted to, you got some part of you in it. It has to have you in it for you to get addicted to it. That's what makes an addiction kind of weird. And they could duplicate it in chemicals, but most of the way they do it is by using actual human body parts and all that stuff that you hear is crushed up lately in foods. But my point is this: the bicarbonate, which I was researching, it goes way back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians started baking soda and all that stuff, using it, and they found out it complements the body because it's just like the body. So they was using it for soothing stomach, cleansing the teeth and all that stuff. So really that's what I found out. So I started using the baking soda, and people like flavor to it or whatever. You want to make it right. So you add a cinnamon, something to it to beef it up. Just make a paste with it with water or something, and you just have that. But that'll do better than you using any chemicals or whatever, because it's made to, like I said, hurt you. So just use some bicarbonate and add it. Some people will put a piece of peppermint in it. I wouldn't recommend peppermint because it's still acidic. It's a form of acid and it goes to your brain. And from research, peppermint isn't actually something you ingest on a regular basis. If you have an upset stomach or you have an ailment, you can fuck with peppermint, but not just to fuck with it. Fuck with it. Throws off your whole system, shocks the brain. But anyways, now let's get into this topic. I'm wearing this hat. This hat been with me for a while, and it goes to my stories. Y'all know I talk about the Black Horseman. It's not because he's the Black Horseman and I'm black. No, it's the Black Horseman from the Four Horsemen. But he's the first to come out and bringing me all this information. Everything I'm telling y'all is compliments of the Black Horseman. So it's been haunting me. It's every day I have to deal with him, and also his little counterpart. It looked like that's his son, but they work together, which is my little nephew. But the thing to this now is, like, this is bringing in Baba Legba and all of them into it. I'm starting to see them and interact with them. They coming up to me, grabbing the back of my head, and we touching heads, and we starting a journey. It's taking me to Illinois, Wisconsin, Arizona. These places, they riding around on horses. And like I remember I told y'all in one of my videos, if you go, when I was telling you how I was actually like going into past, present, future, and other lives, and how it was like a part in the video. I'm telling you, you could ride on them and you could be like on the, that's the people that I'm talking about. I've been just having stuff happening with them. So not only was I able to join the scene and be the person riding on the horse or whatever, I was able to see everything, the environment, going into caves. There was some caves everybody going to, and these ain't regular caves. And to make this not too long and drawn out, you would think, wow, this is kind of far-fetched. But all of a sudden, they have a way of putting things together. They sent me right to YouTube, and I'm just there browsing, probably with okay, what's going on? And so next thing you know, I pop up on a video that start telling the story of how the Mali people, who's tied to the Olmecs, was coming to Illinois, to the caves and to Grand Canyon and all those places. That's where you see all those artifacts and why those areas is isolated that nobody can go to. So with that in mind now, the whole story starts to come of the original black settlers that been there before all this slavery stuff, or Columbus discovered it. We're talking about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, before anybody else occupied it. So all of these things now is information that's wrote out of history. Nobody don't know about that. The spirit world is like you hurting because it's like a part of their life, and it's their history, and probably got something to do with us. A lot of us is not Africa in the sense of how they say African, because now in this research that I'm seeing, it's like I always wondered why they have the Egyptians is not African, but they're black. And then you have the brown race, and you have the Negroes, and you have the Negritos. All these ancient books, when you deal with the beginning of history and all that stuff, you start learning that's what the terms they was using. So these terms now, I'm trying to, how we be. We all black, we all African, that's it. Once you have this color skin, you call it that. But it's more to it. It's not that simple. And that's where everything gets complicated. And I've been noticed it, but I couldn't put my finger quite on what it's trying to say. Because when you look at the history of when people first started populating the earth, you hear the story of the Bushmen and the Pygmies. Two, tribes that was very regular, nothing fancy about them, no technology. But if you notice their history, the Pygmies was first, and they was actually being pushed all the way. You could say they started on the East Coast, and they was being pushed to the West Coast by this new group of people, which would be the Bushmen. The difference between the Bushmen and the Pygmies, one is tall and lighter, and the other one is dark and short. And so one was more spiritual than the other. And this is what happened till eventually Pygmies went all the way to the south. I mean to the east, west. And eventually from the west they just disappeared off the face of the earth. And that's how all society is. And everybody was attributing them to every civilization because they didn't just run from Africa. They ran to the end of motherfucking Alaska or Antarctica till everybody populated the shit and they had to get off the earth. That's why everybody was first short, and then now everybody's getting taller and taller. That's why you see them have them little statues, and we worship Ptah, and you have your little Eskimos. Everybody in every continent was these one group of people. One group of people. And it was spread out, but they changed over their migration. Now, the thing that makes this strange is, all right, let's for, rhetorical senses, just to make this make sense, say you got the Pygmies was the Negroes, original big broad-nosed people like Olmec looking style. And then you have now the Bushmen looking like the Egyptians. So now you got those two peoples, and they will call the Pygmies Negroes, and they will call the Bushmen looking one Negritos. Now, when you go and trace history, you got between the Negroes and the Negritos, there's something about them. It's like now, there is no true time where which one came first. We can't say who was first or whatever, because remember, we're going back from the beginning. You got Pangaea, Lemuria, and you have so many different civilizations that got flooded that you can't say what's the beginning. We're just talking about probably people that coming back out to Earth and repopulating escalating from wherever they was hiding at, and starting just civilization all over again. So now, these second group of people that they calling the Negritos, now they trying to say that they're not like regular humans. They're different because they saying that all religious doctrines came with them. Like they was bearded, big bearded type of people. If they was of the noble family people, they wasn't really hunter-gatherers like the regular people because they kept their faces shaved. But these kingish type people that brought these doctrines of religion was the actual ones that literally had pride, did different things that started the royal line, the purples or the indigos. Now the thing with them is that they're everywhere, but at the same time they're nowhere. Meaning, all right, we could say around 5,000 years ago, this is now where we'll say the United States is supposed to be uninhabited or haven't been there. But they have records with them now, who was dealing with the Olmec, making the calendar. They got the same headgear as the people in Mali. The old Mali king like Massa Musa, he's really famous, and they wear these special Olmec type headgear that's only in Olmec time, and it's only in Mali who have them. But they have a whole record of migration that took place long ago where there was trading between them, metals and whatever, corn. And so they now, when you look at like the Incas, the Mayans, and the Toltecs, they're not actually the original people that was there. It was first Olmec, which they don't know where they come from, and they saying now, after that, they left those races as the caretaker of like the Mayan calendar. They didn't invent no Mayan calendar and all that. That was already there. And all they did was just copy it, and they kept a record of it. So they didn't know the full details of why it's there, its purpose, or anything of that sort. They just knew some of the facts about it. And this is by Mayan archaeologists that researched everything, found all this out, and published it. So now, being that the Mayan calendar is not really Mayan and everything is really Olmec, and we can't actually look for them for answers, we got to go back and revisit everything to get a better understanding of what happened, of who's these people, why are they hidden, and why are they categorized in different categories. Because now they're responsible for the Indo-Europeans and the Orientals. You see, they're not equating that to the Negro race, because they saying that's a stock, that's a surviving stock in the beginning, and they still exist. You got your Nubians, your Ethiopians, it's all mixed up in there. But the source of it is centralized in West Africa for some reason. West Africa is like a different group of people. The Mali people, you got them also in star constellation, our beginning conception stories of what Thoth, when he left Atlantis of the flood or the deluge, the first place they landed was in Mali. Now the thing with Mali is that you got the doggone, right? There's two stars to it, because the people of Mali went against Thoth and them, as far as in the Emerald Tablets, the story go, and it became a draw. And they had to work with the people of Mali, where in the story, the people of Dogon, they got overwhelmed. They beat them down, and they took their spears, and they took everything and made them like civilized and started educating them. They became the priesthood of Thoth or whatever. But the people of Mali, they couldn't control them. They had to set up some type of treaty or some type of way that they could work together as one, because it was an ongoing battle. Now, now this come back around to West Africa is the place where they took all the slaves from. If you notice, all the slaves was focused out of that same area. So all the slaves that was brought into America is of a stock of that breed of people that is considered kingship, royalty, warriors, and cowboys. These people been coming to United States. And the reason why cowboys is there is because back in those days, herds and gold was their number one source of income. So if you was rich, you had a lot of cows. You buy wives with cows. That's how you trade. Poor people coming up have beautiful daughters, hopefully, and they will sell them for cows. They get, maybe 30, 40, 50 cows, 100 cows, sometimes 300, 400 cows for one woman. And so that's why they're the original herdsmen. They wore the straw hats, and they was already in the United States, been with the felt hats, the leather hats. When you're talking about the hats now and get into how this concept works, look at how the Mexicans rock the hats. The Mexicans is the ones who show you they was rocking it back in the zoot suit days and all that. The same hat. It's the same hat that you see Legba, the Hat Man, and the Four Horsemen in. And it's also now mimicked all over in Africa and in those places. And you see how the priests and all the Pope and everybody, and then it went into Egypt with their hat. Everybody was on some covering of their heads because of the crown chakra. You see, most of them back then had metalish type hat though, because it had to be a metal plate over your top of your crown and over your pineal. But over the time, the Jews, you know, with their cunning ways, got people wearing those little yarmulke things, and the Muslim bit the whole Jewish system. And so they wear the same funny hat, but that's not the right one, because you know the spirits come through your pineal and through your crown. So those was always covered. Once you became like a higher being or indigo being, they don't leave it open for just anybody. And so with that in mind now, that's where all these hot concepts come from. But the original cowboys and the herdmen was not really like what we see in the movies and everything. That was they got their version of it from the Mexicans. The Mexicans been doing that, and the Mexicans got it from the people in South America. The people in South America got it from Mali, Africa. All right, it's raining. University of Conscious Science. One love. We talk some more in the next video. It's just that the rain is coming. I gotta cut it short. Peace.